Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Brian. Hope you're doing well today. It is Monday, the 5th of October, and we're just going to run through the little bit of numbers here. What are we looking at for the day? What are some important potential, news events here this week? And then we'll go ahead and get out of here. So we're gonna let's hit the news events first. A lot of speeches, talks coming up this week. ECB President Lagarde is speaking a couple of times Tuesday and Wednesday, as is Mr. Powell. Mr. Powell is speaking on Tuesday morning to a business, this National Association of Business Economics. He's talking about the U.S. economic outlook. That could be a potential market mover depending on if there's any Q&A there, and especially if there's any talking points outside of his prepared statement. Then Wednesday afternoon we have FOMC, which again could be a pretty major announcement for us, depending on what comes out of that and how the market absorbs the blurbs that are in that statement. So a couple of things to watch out for this week. Some of it happens before we begin trading for the day. Some of it happens as we're in for the day. The ones that are happening as we're in a trading session for the day are the most important, really, because at that point we need to determine what to do with if we're in a position, what to do with that position. If we're not in a position, when do we get in? We certainly don't ever want to get into a new position in advance of the news. If we see something move at, let's say 9:30, and you've got news coming up at 9:40, maybe not the best time to jump into something with the uncertainty of the market that's coming up, in just a few minutes, pending that announcement or that talk or that speech or that testimony or whatever it might be, right? So just keep that in mind. So always check our news first, know what to do, kind of get our game plan together for the week, and then begin moving forward from there. As far as things go here in the forex market for the day, just kicking things off, fairly flat. Nothing, hugely out of sorts here. Nothing really jumping off the page as far as a one currency that's just a big winner. One that's being heavily bought. One currency that's being heavily sold. It's kind of across the board. Everything's just moving pretty steadily, which is what we typically like to see anyway. One thing that does stand out here, and we see some nice divergence as we're coming up on the new U.S. session about to begin. We see that over the course of the day so far, the euro has been trending very nicely stronger. It's been heavily bought. And conversely, you've got the CAD and the USD, as well as the yen, that are down here to the weaker side. So that creates some potential opportunity for us. Looking over here at the Euro CAD, for example, that's moved, let's make that bigger. That's moved 60 pips for the day. Didn't do much on Friday at all. But our average range is typically in that 80 to 90 area. So, nice steady upward movement today as we enter the new session. The box will paint here in just a few minutes. But looking at that as a breakout to the long side, as long as our volume detail, continues to be favoring buying, we would look at a long opportunity there on the Euro CAD. It's a beautiful, steady trend coming into the new session. Lots of room remaining for this to run to get that 20 pips that we're looking for. Looks like a great setup. Now, does that mean that it'll win? No. I haven't said this in a while, but absolutely not. We base our trading decisions on what we're seeing up to this point. No one knows what the future is going to be, but this looks like all the boxes are being ticked for it being a nice tradable opportunity. We've got divergence between currencies. We've got a range that's moved a fraction of its typical range. We'd be looking to move in the direction of the trend, and as long as our volume detail continues favoring the buy side, we'd be moving again in the direction of that volume activity as well. So all the boxes there meet our criteria. So that's what we look for here. Euro CAD looks like a great opportunity. Euro USD is here as well, but Euro USD, as we can see, if I make this one a little bit bigger up here, not as nice of an opportunity. You know, this one's moved 70 pips, almost 68 pips, on an average of 75 to 79. You know, does it have as much opportunity as the euro versus the CAD does? So I see more opportunity in the CAD, which is why I'd be looking over here for the opportunity this morning. Moving over to the futures market real quickly. I'm going to pull it up this way over here. Just running through this really quickly. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here today. This is the indicator, the BTX indicator that's out here on these, and what I've got it doing is telling us what my 4-hour bias is, as well as what my 30-minute bias is. So the heavier moving averages, these are the 4-hour bias, and the lighter moving averages here are the 30-minute, the current time frame bias. So just real quickly on one chart, I can see what else is going on here. And looking at the S&P to begin with, we've got a long bias on the 4-hour, and we've got a long bias on the 30-minute as well. Gapped up a little bit after the open on Friday didn't really go anywhere. Friday moved up, it moved down, it came back to pretty much where it started. Friday didn't do much of anything, but it did gap open this morning. We've been in a pretty tight range here, but the bias is long, so we'd be continuing to look for buying opportunities on that. The buying opportunities can look like a couple of things for us. One, it could be a pullback, and watching the breakout of the tops of the previously closed lower highs. So as we get into regular trading hours, if this begins pulling back here, we can park our entries at the top of previously closed lower highs and wait for it to break back out in the direction that that our bias is in. And if it doesn't break back out, then we don't trade, right? But so that's one way of looking at it. The other way is just to look at key levels. This 3350 is definitely a key level. It's already closed this gap earlier this evening or earlier this morning, but it may be able to get back into it again today. If it pulls back to this 3350, 3340 area, great spot to look at a buy off of that bounce. Other spots would be kind of where we're hanging right now at this 3360. So breaking up a little bit, if we break higher and crack through this 3370, that'd be another spot to look at a buy breakout going to the long direction, which would be the direction of the trend. Now, if things break down, we break down below 3340, I have a feeling at that point our shorter term moving averages would have crossed anyway. But if they don't and we break down below 3340, we'd probably be looking at the market beginning to fall again, looking at shorts. But we'd have a mixed bias in that point, and that would tell you, hey, if we're being conservative, mixed bias, don't trade it, right? Going over to gold, because the three we talk about, S&P, future, gold, S&P, gold, and crude. So going down here to gold, we've got still a short bias. The 4-hour bias is short. The 30-minute bias is actually short as well. However, we have seen a rally this morning. Gold certainly pushing higher. Now, some resistance points for gold will be around 1910 up here. We're currently at 1908, but this 1910 area is a pretty big point of resistance, maybe even up to 1912, 1915. But 1910 is the lower area of resistance as we kind of look at that resistance band, that resistance area. There's going to be a lower edge and a top edge, like a bottom edge and a top edge of support and resistance. I've talked about this before in the past as well, that we use a line to kind of define support resistance, but it's really more of an area. And you've got edges, you've got that bottom edge of the area, the top edge of that area. So looking at gold over here, 1910, 1912, but probably 1910 really is kind of the bottom edge of that resistance point. And then, moving up to about 1912, 1913, if it breaks through that, we continue looking at longs. But really, it's a short bias, so we'd be looking for a bounce, back down at the short side as it comes up here around 1910, 1912, right? The other way to look at it would be placing our entry points at the bottoms of the previously closed higher lows. If we're in a short trend, we want to trade breakouts as it moves lower. So watching for higher lows and higher highs would be a way to look for this market to break back out in the direction of our current trend. Now, of course, if it breaks up here and we crack above 1910, 1912, it's running, and that bias will have changed. And I think at that point, we'll have seen the moving averages cross as well on the 30-minute, which would give us that mixed bias and tell us, hey, just sit on our hands anyway. But, beginning here, the bias is short on both the 4-hour and the 30-minute. So if we get to this 1910 area, 1912, we can look for quick reversals to see if it goes back in the direction of that current trend, or that bias rather. And if it doesn't, then if it cracks through here, you could either just be conservative and say, hey, my biases are mixed, I'm not going to do anything, or you flip it to a long and look at long opportunities to see if the market's going to rally back into the 2000 range or not. We'll see. Who knows? All right, and over here on crude, real quickly, and then we'll wrap it up. On crude, we've got a mixed bias. Our 4-hour is short, but our 30-minute is long, and so crude's kind of mixed up. Really, right now, and I mentioned this last week a little bit, if we see a big sell-off in the S&P, that may drag crude down with it. And conversely, with a rally here in the S&P, it may drag crude up a bit. But right now, it's a mixed bias, and it just tells us, hey, let's sit on our hands, let's not do anything over there. All right, so that's it. Talked about some key levels. We talked about potential opportunity over here on forex. We've got kind of what we're going to be looking at, levels we're going to be trading from over here in futures, and then I think that'll wrap it up. Yeah, obviously no video today. You can hear my sniffles in my throat. I think just allergies. I was out dirt bike riding yesterday with family and friends, and I woke up this morning with a splitting headache and sniffly nose. So obviously, right through the brush, I picked up something that didn't agree with me. So anyway, neither here nor there. Just that's what's going on. So I'll wrap it up here. Let you guys get on with your day. Just remember, as always, have a plan, trade your plan, figure out what you're going to be doing for the day before the market starts and before emotion drives everything. Emotion is the killer in what we're trying to accomplish here. We just get in our own way over and over and over unless we have a plan and actually have the mental fortitude to stick to it. And that's why it's so important to plan it out before the market begins and the emotion drives the trade. All right, so that's it. I'll have video tomorrow. We'll talk to you guys later.